Hello and welcome to Grocer Pod. My name is Sean Kosednar. This week I'm talking to IGA's president and CEO, John Ross. But before we get to him, please remember to subscribe to Grocer Pod. Subscribing means new episodes will be downloaded for you automatically. You can find Grocer Pod on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. Thanks for joining me today, John.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
John, I'm sure all of our listeners already know who you are, but could you give me a quick background on who you are and how you got into the grocery business?
Sure. I'm a retailer by trade. I started off as a lot boy and working back room, and then I worked commissioned retail for consumer electronics and durable products, and I worked all through college doing that. And then I moved into marketing. So I'm actually a retail operator, sales, and I'm also a retail marketer. So I worked as a CMO for a couple of big companies, and ended kind of my retail career as CMO at Home Depot, where I spent 13 years. And then I did a kind of a weird detour. I went off into the agency world and I ran retail practices for some of the biggest agencies worldwide. And then I went to a big data company and worked on retail data. And now I'm back with IGA. So where the road started, it has ended, and I'm back in retail.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start you off with a simple question that I'm sure has a very straightforward answer, but what's the state of the independent grocer?
Yeah, I'm actually really bullish on the state of the independent grocer. If you look at total sales performance in the industry today, and you look at all aggregated grocery stores, so this means taking out warehouse clubs and dollar stores, but you look at pure grocers, and you look at comp store performance of IGA stores, there's about 2,000 IGA stores in the United States today. Relative to that average, we're running 150 to 250 basis points of comp over and above the industry grocery average. That's really interesting.
I can see why you're bullish then. I think today we're going to focus a little bit on the marketing. And before we started recording, we had a few laughs about the challenges and things. But seriously, when it comes to marketing, what should grocers be doing?
So in order to answer what you're marketing, what you should do on a marketing standpoint, you need to begin with, why do we think that shoppers are responding to independent grocers the way they have been? Like, if we've got a hot hand as an industry, why would that be?
Yeah.
And so you start with the shopper and you work backwards. So you look inside the mind of the shopper, you look at how they're prioritizing the decisions they make. And a great place to look for that data is a great annual survey that FMI does. They put it out. It's free to FMI members. I'm sure they can get it through AWG, or call me and I'll be glad to share it. And they ask the question, if you have two grocery stores that are right next to each other, so they're equally convenient, why would you choose one over the other? And intuitively, you think the number one answer is going to be price. That's just right intuitively. Number one answer is actually quality. Quality of selection, quality of produce, specifically produce, fresh and natural and healthy and organic, right? Shoppers want to believe the food that they give to their family is better for their family than not. And for whatever reason, they have linked healthiness and freshness to local and independent retailers. And the opposite side of that, which is why this is so good for us, is they also believe, whether it's true or not, they believe that big national chains, the bigger they are, the worse and poor quality the food is. So we remember their community. We're buying from local farms. The local farmers are literally at the back of our store, where they're in the aisle working with them. We've got the best meat usually in town. We've got great produce departments. We have a massive competitive advantage if the shopper believes that we're part of a shorter supply chain than some big national chain.
And that should be a pretty easy sell from the grocer. Just knowing what little I know. I mean, I run a podcast and I'm not in the stores, but it seems like it should be a pretty easy sell to the consumer that the independent has the better, shorter supply chain, better selection, healthier products. How do grocers go about delivering that message?
You would think it would be just so natural that we would trip all over this. But our culture as independents tends to be very humble. These are family businesses, second and third and fourth generation businesses, right? We know our story. We know what we do special, but we're not the kind of brands that typically bang the drum really loud and yell and scream about our advantages. We're not used car dealers, right? And so you go in the stores and you wander around, you look, the produce looks great, but there's no signage on it that says this was bought from Miller's Farm, which is 80 miles down the road. And you go and you look around the store and you can't find the word local or fresh. You know, the word independent doesn't often exist. We don't have big signs up explaining or if we do, they're buried behind the cash register and some pictures of your family, right? And so our loyal shoppers, the people who've known us forever, tend to be older. They kind of understand our deal. But their kids and their grandchildren, as these young adults are coming into our marketplace or new people coming in, they may not totally understand that we're as close to farm to store to table as you could get. And if there were one request I would do with every independent out there is I'd get a notepad or some sticky notes and I'd walk around my store and I put a sticky note every time I use the word local or independent or explain the advantages of having a real baker or a real, right? Walk around. Where do we tell this story? And I'm afraid you'd end up with a very thick notepad when you got to the end of it because we're not ruthless self-promoters. Mm-hmm. Means we should be, right? It's like you want to put your arm around them going, it's okay to tell this story because the shopper wants to hear it.
Well, it's interesting that you said that we're not ones to scream and yell, because I know that you've written a book that one of the things that it touches on is how screaming at people usually doesn't work. So that is good for the independent grocer. But yeah, I'm with you. Like all it takes is just like little things to point out. This is like from the community. One of the things I talk about on the show all the time is how, the AWG members should really be ingraining themselves in the community and showing all of the different things that they do, whether that's, meals for the football team on Friday nights or, sponsoring the Little League baseball team or whatever. But they're doing so much stuff that really like ingrains them in the community, and just showing that off is only going to, snowball and build that community as they keep going.
That book is called Fire in the Zoo, and it comes out of a period in retail where retail advertising, special local advertising, was all about screaming. Car dealers and banging, dropping cars, and local attorneys, to promise you checks and all that kind of crazy stuff. And so out of that, retailers have, our solution for every problem is run an ad. Let's make the headline bigger. Let's make the price point bigger. Let's build an enormous truckload display in on our parking lot. And why those things work on a temporary basis, they're undifferentiated marketing because anyone can lower their price. Mm-hmm. Where they get exciting is, you tell the reason why the shopper should want your product. Like, what do you stand for that no one else does? So if you and I went to a local store and we walked around that local store and we got to the end of it and I said, okay, well, tell me why you'd shop this store versus anybody else. If you pause, or worse, if the store manager, when I ask that question, pauses, right? If it's not really clear and overt to you why you shop that store, we're burying the lead. But if you're able to go, wow, this store is amazing. They got this incredible produce department, and that lady over there is doing all this stuff comes from local farms, or has the illusion that it does, right? Or that guy back there's grinding his own sausage and custom flavors, or they're doing this barbecue program outside. It doesn't matter what we do. We do all these amazing things, right? But it's got to be overt. It's got to be something that the consumer can repeat. There's this really precious moment where you're at a church social or you're at a soccer game with your kids, whatever. And if someone were said, hey, I'm new to town, where should I shop? The shoppers program, they go, well, you should shop IGA, or you should shop Miller's Fresh Market or whatever. And here's why. If they can say 3 things about it, then that means you're programming that shopper to replicate your message. And that's the way you create differentiation in your marketplace, not just on price.
So what are the ways that you've seen independent grocers really, show that differentiation in their stores? Are there a couple of traits that you're seeing them do?
Absolutely. So the first one, so there's a whole series of tactics here. The first one is you've got to tell that story. So you're looking for words like fresh and local and independent. You want to tell your story and your narrative, and you want to do that. So IGA has a full visual merchandising program. Any retailer in the world can go on to our website and see what those signs look like. And you may not like the colors, and you may want to do something. Just steal the ideas. You don't have to use our program in order to be inspired by it. That signage program, when you go put those messages into your store, and it's all the way up at the top, down to little stickers on the muffins and the fresh cut fruit that we make. Because we do this thing in our stores, like where we're baking these incredible muffins that are really beautiful, and then we stick them in a clear plastic clamshell package that makes it look like the factory built ones at Walmart that were shipped 2,000 miles away, right? We end up blunting the effect of what we do without telling our story. So from the little stickers that say baked by Melissa today at 8:00 to the cut fresh in store sticker to the big signs up telling you the advantages of buying local, there's messaging in there, visual merchandising messaging, and you should take advantage. The second thing is your own people. So in your store, you've got people working for you who are passionate about food. It may be your butcher, it may be someone in produce, it may be some kid that works for you that loves beer or loves wine, or I say kid, a legal aged adult, please, right? Right. But there may be somebody in your store that's really into hot sauces. It could be anything, right? Grab those people and make them an expert, right? Use social media, use in-store signage, have them put little stickers on the products that they're their choice. My favorite pairing of this wine with camembert cheese, or they're going to put, the hottest hot sauce you'll ever love, but it tastes great. Or these custom sausage in this jambalaya recipe will spice up the heat. It doesn't matter what they say. What you're doing is taking the personality of the people that work for your store, and you're letting that personality come through on the shelf or in your social media. So when people look at our brand, what they're seeing is people who love food. And who doesn't want to source the things they feed from their family from someone who loves food the way you want your kids to? So the opportunity to use your own folks. Finally, on social media, we often get in this really what I consider to be a trap. It's print versus digital. I need to reduce my print. I need to increase my digital. I tell you, I don't care where you get your eyeballs from. Print's working, direct mail, hire a Zeppelin in your town. You want kids on bicycles. It doesn't matter. And with 6,500 IGA stores all over the world, I can tell you somewhere in some country, someplace, there's somebody doing something interesting in marketing that isn't just digital or just print. It doesn't really matter. What matters far more is the content. What is your message? What story are you trying to tell? If your print ad is just rectangles with prices, you look no different from Food Lion. You look no different from Walmart. It's just undifferentiated. There's an opportunity to curate your story and tell these incredible things about what's going on in your store. In social media, if you're just telling them what the blueberries on sale, what a waste. Instead, how about having the farmer do a little video saying these blueberries in this field are going to be in your store this weekend. And when you do that, guess what? They're sold out before they come. The people are standing there waiting for them to come in because they want it so fresh. And if you're not using Facebook or social media, then do it in email or do it in a text blast. It does not matter. Curate your message around what makes you special, and whatever media you're buying is going to rock.
And I know what retailers are going to say, and I know that you do too, because you've had these exact same conversations when you've made these suggestions or like gotten people to start the program. I don't have time to come up with that. And that's the thing that I think we really need to combat is it doesn't take a whole lot of creativity. They think ads and they think of the agency world and like, oh, there's people in a room and it's Mad Men and someone's flipping over a poster with this idea that they came up with at 3 a.m, when really it's just like, tell your story. Where'd your blueberries come from? Who baked those muffins? Just like you said, like it's super simple and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to think of, but there's only so much that, me sitting here can do if I'm creating your social media where like you're in the store, everything that's going on. Just tell people what you know. And I think people are going to really respond to it.
Well, I mean, it is a new skill, right? So, I mean, in order to be a successful independent, you need to be an operator, you need to be a merchant, you need to be a labor relations counselor, you need to be all of these things, right? And you have to do them all the same day. And it used to be with print, your ad group would give you something. All you had to do is proof it and make sure the prices were right and get the right items, and off you go. And suddenly now you're in the publishing business, you're in the content business. But you are, right? Your Facebook page, your email, all the other things that we do, that's you're a publisher now. And so over time, we're going to have to develop that competency. Now, there are shortcuts. You certainly can. Little agencies out there that will do this work for you. AR Marketing is one of our partners. They do a beautiful job for our retailers. And you can pay someone else to do the work, right? And they can come in and help you. And basically, they call you each week and ferret out the stories from you, and they produce them. Or you can grab. It's an incredible opportunity for a way to motivationally inspire the younger people in our stores. I guarantee you there's somebody in your store who is a heavy social media user. And if you went to them and say, I want you to spend an hour or two a week just working on this, and I'll pay you extra for that to see what would happen. And I guarantee you your Facebook hits would go crazy and your sales will happen as a consequence. And you'll be taking something that a young person who's already digital native wants to do. But then there's a third one. And the third one's really genius. And this is where you outsource to your shopper. You've got shoppers in your store that love the products and food that they want celebrity themselves. You've got somebody that loves beer and wine, and the beer and wine guy is in there talking to you all the time. Say, hey, I want to do an interview with you while we stand here in the aisle. I want you to talk about the beers that you like in my store. And suddenly you will find that your own shoppers are opportunity for content generation. All you have to do is stand there with your iPhone. It takes almost no work.
And I know that the retailers are already having these conversations with people, whether they're in line themselves at their own store, they're at the post office, they're at the community function. They're talking to people about what's going on in their store. They're selling their store. And like you said, their customers are selling their store too. Like this, when I go to these stores to make, excellence in merchandising videos or whatever, like I have no trouble finding customers that are ready and eager to talk about what they like about not even the store in general, specific departments. They know what's going on in all of the departments and they're ready to talk about it. And it really is just giving these people, like you said, a platform to do it and they'll do it.
So Sean, I know AWG has resources and tools in order to help them. Mm-hmm. We do too at IGA. So whether you're an AWG member of IGA or not, somewhere there's going to be a partner that's going to help you. And I know that anyone who calls me, I don't care if they're an IGA or not, and they're asking for advice or suggestions, or maybe a benchmark of somebody who does it well. We say yes to everybody. And I'm glad to help. And there's a continuum. You've got some guys that are just natural hams, and they're running around, bowling for turkeys in the aisle, and they're throwing hams around the store and dressing up in costumes and doing stuff. That's not everybody's personality. We've got other retailers that are just working with their farmers. And when the farmer wheels the truck up at the back of the store, they take 5 seconds to record saying, hey, tell me about the products you're delivering today. And the guy says, these cabbages came out of the ground. And they're having double the sales of the product, just like that. One of our retailers in Connecticut went out with this kid, and I think Connecticut, may not have been, somewhere in the Northeast, and filmed he and his children in the pumpkin patch where the pumpkins were coming to the store. And he was sold out. And usually they're throwing them away at the end of the season. And so just tiny bits of effort here in order to bring the personality of you and your family and your suppliers into the mix. It's this magic that says this independent is not a national chain. We're not some big impersonal corporate thing, but we're a part of your community and we're real people just like you. And oh, by the way, we love fresh food. You do that, and you're going to be very pleased with the return on your marketing spend.
And I think one of the things that also puts them off creating this content is seeing the content from the big national chains and seeing how high produced and polished it is and thinking, oh, I can't do that. I don't have the skills for that. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the money for that. When in reality, everything that we're talking about is do it yourself, be local. Like people are going to respond to that. And it really is just as simple as turning on the camera on your phone, recording something short and sweet. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't look like Michael Bay produced it. It'll be fine and people will love it. And your sales.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Sean, but I'm just so excited about your question because it's actually better. Because I see it. So we supply content. If you're an IGA member, you get your national content. You just run it. You don't have to do anything. You just post it. And it's pretty and it's very curated and it's very nice. You do something, anything that you do. It could be folksy. It could be amateurish. It could be goofy. As long as the audio, as long as they can hear what you're saying, right? But as long as they can hear what you're saying, it doesn't matter. And I guarantee you'll get double the click-through rate. And engagement is what we're talking about, shopper engagement. You get double that if it feels more genuine and more local. And here's the insight on that. It's really fascinating. People want to feel like insiders. Like it's why conspiracy theories are so hot right now, is everyone wants to feel like they've got some inside bit of knowledge that nobody else has. And so when you're having this dialogue as an operator about something, we all have to go grocery shopping. If someone's telling you how their business operates, or they're explaining to you about somebody that works there, or giving you some insight about food, it's so important to us all, suddenly you feel like you're a part of a club that nobody else knows. It massively increases loyalty, and it gives them reasons to engage with you. It's so strange. You do a podcast. I'm sure you had this weird thing happen where people hear you all the time, and then they meet you for the first time and they're talking to you like they're your friend. Yeah. Your voice has been in their brain. That's what you're doing with this media is your program. You're forming this really personal relationship over amazingly impersonal media that allows them to feel like they're an insider, and that makes them more loyal.
Absolutely. I think back, so it's been a few years since I was on the digital marketing team here at AWG, but I think back to one of the accounts that one of my colleagues helped manage, and the most successful posts every week were from the owner who just like wrote down on a piece of copy paper in magic marker, like 3 deals, took a picture of it, posted it. And those were the most successful posts, like outperformed everything that was, monetized and paid for and promoted. Those were the posts. And it was just magic marker on a piece of paper.
Well, so also don't forget the normal tricks. So anything involving kittens, puppies, or children always increases your engagement too. We've got this a coworker of mine years ago. Her kid just got into the business of reviewing products, and we had him review some new IGA private label animal crackers. Right, the kid reviews them, does a review. And that got way more lift than any of the professional stuff that we've done, because people like seeing something that's not as produced. It's not as curated. It feels more genuine. And we're in the genuine, real business. No one wants artificial food, and they don't want an artificial or a plastic retailer.
Absolutely. So, John, we're coming up on time here. I know you're busy, so I'm going to get you out of here pretty soon. Coming up on the end of the year, what do you think the future looks like? You said you were bullish for independent grocers. What's the future look like just in general, and then specifically for some marketing opportunities?
Yeah. So, we're coming off the most unprecedented, bizarre sales time in the history of our industry. For an industry that's usually plus or minus 2 comp is about the wild range. And we had, months with double-digit comps, and we've had high single-digit comps for years. With combination of inflation and economic pressure on the consumer. A lot of our chains are seeing their numbers. It's not as easy to get the big numbers as it was before, and you may even be going negative right now. You've got to put in perspective. And the piece of advice I'd give is go back and look at your 2019 sales. Project out if you'd gotten a normal increase for the last 3 years, a 2%, 3%, whatever you think an aspirational target was. And you're going to see we're still ahead. We're still way ahead where we were before. The only way that's true is if we were able to attract net new shoppers to into our stores, into our brand than we did before, which means you have a really precious opportunity to program those shoppers as evangelists. You got to think about all the new people that we got during COVID, and you got to make sure that they're taking our message out into their communities and telling their friends about what we do better. Why our stuff is fresher, while a real butcher matters. If you break stuff in your store, the amazing cookies or donuts or whatever you make, it does not matter what you make. You got to make sure that they can replicate that and tell those stories. And if you do that, yes, our comp sales may look, be challenged as we look at this year versus last year. But when we come out of this economic transfer, you're going to have a larger, more loyal base than you had before.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things is capitalizing on those increases. If if you haven't updated your signage, like you were saying, like to really prioritize talking about fresh and made in-house and local and all of those things, this would be a great time to do it because you've had these massive gains for the last few years. And if you reinvest some of that into this, then you're just going to get those gains again and see the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, I am sensitive. It's tough, right? You're having to make capital decisions in an environment where all cost of capital is more, and the pressure on your store. I mean, everything's up. Your fuel costs, your energy costs, your labor costs, your insurance. Everything is up, right? That's real pressure. I am sensitive to that. A full visual merchandising update in a store could be as little as $5,000. And we see somewhere between 150 and 250 basis points of comp that happen almost immediately. A full total decor refresh, the way we do it, might be 25 or 30, and that appears to be the big sustain. So somewhere in there is an investment, a moderate investment with a very nice return. It turns into annuity that keeps on giving. But we all have to be sober. I mean, we've got, again, starting with the shopper and working backwards, literally everything in their life is more expensive right now. There's nothing that's cheaper. And the energy costs are spiking again, but healthcare is not cheaper. And rent is out of control, and the cost of groceries. And so sensitive to what's happening in that basket, there is one more message that we should talk about, and that's programming by meal. So if you look at your environment today and say, who do we compete against? In a value-driven world, who are we losing to? Are we losing to the dollar stores? Maybe they chip away at you. Walmart does their thing. Is it Food Lion? Is it Winn-Dixie? Like, who is it? Who's your competitor? And if we only answer within that circle, we're missing the big thing. Because the real conversation is restaurants. Today in the United States, 52% of Americans are getting their primary meal occasions through a restaurant or through a meal delivery, not through something they cook at home. Just 2 years ago, that was flipped. We had the bulk of share, and we've ceded that back to the restaurants. Well, the reality is, if like independent, it's hard to say, well, how do I compete with Walmart on price? Right? It's impossible. How do I compete with Amazon? Right? Forget them. What's the cost of a meal for four for spaghetti and meatballs and a salad in your store versus what it is at Olive Garden? Do that math. It's a third less expensive. It's half the calories. It's a third the sodium. And it tastes better, and it's not hard to do. And so take those restaurants on, show the comparison for what it costs to feed your family, cooked at home versus in those restaurants. We have a massive value proposition that we can hammer away at right now, and I would encourage every retailer to go after them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really great advice. Thank you for your time today, John.
I'm glad to be on the show. Anything I can do to help you guys, I'm always glad to.
And thank you all for listening to this episode of Grocer Pod. That's it for this week. My name is Sean Kosednar, and I'll be back next week for another episode of Grocer Pod.